January 12, 1944. East Prussia. German Army Group Center Headquarters. Snow drifts like torn white paper across the courtyard as staff officers stomp their boots, shaking off the bitter cold. Inside the operations hut, the air is thick with cigarette smoke, damp wool, and the stale exhaustion of a war stretching far beyond its limits. Major General Hans Reinhardt bends over a frost-rimmed window, listening as a teleprinter clacks out a new intelligence bulletin. The machine rattles, spits, stops, then starts again, as if struggling to deliver news too heavy for its gears. Oberstleutnant Weber, cheeks red from the cold, lifts the printout. His eyes scan the first lines, then freeze. Americans are producing 1,000 Sherman tanks a month, he murmurs. Then he looks again, thinking he misread it, and increasing. Projected output 1,200 by spring. Reinhardt closes the window with a heavy thud. Impossible, he mutters. No nation can build armor at that pace. Reinhardt takes it with a gloved hand. He reads it once, twice. The third time his breath fogs the page. Outside, artillery rumbles faintly, a distant drumbeat from the collapsing Eastern Front. Inside, the general feels something he hasn't felt since 1941. Not of Soviet tanks, not of Allied landings, but of arithmetic. He sits at the map table, staring at the tiny unit markers representing Germany's tank forces. Panzers that take weeks to repair, Panthers that break down faster than they arrive, Tigers requiring factories Germany no longer has. And then Shermans, endless Shermans, a green tide. He whispers under his breath, if this report is true, the war is already decided. A young aide enters with a tray, lukewarm coffee, stale bread. The kind of rations Germany's industry can barely afford anymore. The general looks at the food, then at the report again. Factories bombed, oil fields burning, skilled workers drafted and killed, cities in rubble, and America untouched, building tanks like automobiles. The teleprinter stutters again, printing an additional line. U.S. shipyards transporting armor to Europe at record speed. Liberty ships launching every 24 days. Reinhardt leans back in his chair, coat creaking. He thinks of the Eastern Front casualties, the broken supply lines, the dwindling fuel, and now this, a machine that cannot be stopped. Thousands, he mutters. Thousands more tanks. How can any army survive that? He lifts his eyes to the doorway where cold wind seeps in, carrying snowflakes that flutter like falling ash. Notify Berlin, he says quietly. They will not want to hear this, but they must. But deep in his stomach, he already knows the truth. Berlin won't change anything, because there is nothing left to change. The tank factories of the Reich are dying. America's are only just waking up. June 7, 1944. Northern France, Perrier's Carenton Road. The rain from the night before still clings to the hedgerows, dripping in cold beads off tangled branches. The road is soft, mud slick beneath boots and tank treads. And then far off at first comes a sound like a rolling storm. Not artillery, not aircraft, something heavier, something endless. Oberst Karl-Heinz Mertens wipes mud from his binoculars and leans forward from the ruined barn where his command post hides. He expects to see a column of maybe a dozen Allied tanks, enough to challenge, enough to maneuver around. That's what German officers are used to. But when the fog finally parts, his stomach tightens. Shermans, rows of them. A steel procession stretching so far back the last vehicles blend into the horizon. Mein Gott, one of his lieutenants breathes behind him. That's a regiment. No, Mertens mutters, his jaw tightens. That's several. The engines rumble like a heartbeat of industry. Fresh paint, clean tracks, spare parts strapped neatly on the hulls, as if they'd rolled straight out of the factory and onto the battlefield. And in a way, they had. The Shermans don't creep. They advance confidently, like men who know they can afford to lose some and still win. The Reich has no reserves left. No fuel, no steel, no factories untouched. The lieutenant swallows hard. Herr Oberst, how many do you think they brought into France? Mertens almost laughs, but there's no humor in it. Intelligence says over 5,000 landed in the first wave. Another rumble rolls over the field as more Shermans cross a ridge, then more behind them, and trucks, jeeps, bulldozers, repair crews, mobile workshops, not just tanks, an entire industrial army. Mertens steps outside the barn, boots sinking into the muck, and watches the Allied column carve its way through the countryside, never stopping, never hesitating. The lieutenant joins him, whispering, Is this what the report in January meant?" Mertens nods slowly. In the East, generals had whispered that America's production numbers would break Germany, but whispers are nothing compared to this, the physical, undeniable reality of an enemy who can replace what he loses before the wreckage even cools. A distant crack echoes across the field. A Sherman's turret swivels, fires once, and a German half-track bursts into flames near the tree line. The column doesn't even pause. Mertens stares at the burning wreck. "How do you fight an army," he says quietly, "that can build faster than you can destroy?" He already knows the answer. You don't. You survive as long as you can, and then you break. Thunder rolls again, but this time it isn't weather. It's another wave of Shermans behind the first. March 1945. Remagen bridgehead. Cold wind cuts across the Rhine, carrying the smell of burning oil and wet timber. Smoke drifts from the ruined West Bank as German officers gather inside a makeshift command dugout carved into the hillside. Their cheeks are hollow, their uniforms frayed. Every map on the table tells the same story. Oberst Mertens stands over the map, hands planted on the table, knuckles white. The officers around him murmur about holding the line, counterattacks, reinforcing the East Bank, but their words are hollow. Background noise. The kind men speak to avoid silence. Then the ground trembles. Not a single explosion, not artillery. A steady, rhythmic thunder like a blacksmith beating iron. The men inside the bunker exchange glances. Mertens's throat tightens. He remembers what German intelligence said months ago, that America was producing over 1,000 tanks every month, some factories running 24 hours a day, others turning out machines faster than Germany could process the steel for them. Back then, he tried not to believe it. Now he's watching it, rolling toward him in real time. The lieutenant beside him whispers, voice hollow, "We cannot knock out that many. Even if every gun we have fires until the barrels break, we cannot stop that." Mertens doesn't answer, because he sees something worse than the tanks. He sees the crews, clean uniforms, full bellies, rested faces, not the worn, skeletal German tankers who haven't slept properly in months. These Americans look like men who rotated out of battle last week, slept in a warm cot, ate a real breakfast. Another wave of Shermans crosses the bridge, then another. The column is so long it seems to have no end. Behind Mertens, the German officers spill out of the dugout one by one. None speak. None need to. The truth is visible in their eyes. This isn't a battle. It's the final audit of a bankrupt empire. The lieutenant's voice cracks. "Herr Oberst, is this the end?" "This," he says, watching yet another green column appear through the morning haze, "is what defeat looks like when an entire nation drowns in industry. The war was lost long before today. We just did not want to see it." A distant explosion rips across the river as the first Shermans engage German rearguards. The sound echoes like a closing door. Mertens lowers his binoculars. He doesn't need them anymore. The truth is already close enough to touch. Germany didn't lose the war on the battlefield. It lost it in the factories, months, even years before this moment. And now, as the armored tide rolls forward in endless formation, all that's left is acceptance. The final realization settles over the officers like ash. You cannot fight a nation that builds tanks faster than you can bury them. The Shermans keep coming, and there is no stopping them.